Hello, and welcome to Exploring Axon, a podcast where we discuss Axon Framework, Axon Server, and their ecosystem. I am your host and a software developer at Axonic, Sarah Torrey. In this episode, I spoke with Vijay Nair about different tools for modeling applications and systems. Just a quick disclaimer that this is not a sponsorship episode, and we did not receive any monetary or otherwise funds or encouragements for any of these companies that we're talking about today. We just wanted to share the knowledge and the experience that we have with you. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's have a listen. Hi, Vijay. How are you today?
Good, Sarah, yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that you decided to join me again to have another really fun and informative conversation. Thank you for being here.
Well, you are like the Joe Rogan of the DDD world, right? So
Well, I
everybody,
take that as a compliment. Thank you.
yeah, it's a compliment. But he's one of the best out there. So you're doing your part.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiment. Thank you so much.
You didn't see that coming, yeah. So
No, I didn't. Well, wonderful surprise. And thank you. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks, so this was very, very much appreciated. I appreciate it. Thank you. So today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is planning an application and modeling it and the process that goes through it. So we're gonna talk about some tools that folks can use in order to model their DDD centric applications. And so let's do it, shall we?
yeah, we can.
So
Uh,
you just told me about this tool that is new to me. I've not used it, and you just introduced it to me. So I'm excited to learn about it and hear about it. So it's called DDD Crew. Can you tell everybody what it is and how you can use it?
right. I think one of the challenges that's still there in the world today, in the DDD world, is about domain discovery and then flushing out the domain model. Basic, can you tell me steps 101 to get out my domain model, apply domain driven design, and start building my application, right? And we've got a lot of problems in that. There are a ton of the such tools that give you a very high level view, but there are some specific set of cool tools which actually lay it out in a in a very concise way. And then as developers, we benefit from preciseness in definition. So DDD Crew is one of the first things that I was introduced to when I started the DDD journey.
Okay,
And
so it's not a new tool.
it's not a new tool; it's been around for a
Awesome.
long time.
Okay.
And it's essentially it gives you a starter process for your DDD modeling process, right? So,
Okay.
and it's not only for it's for beginners, it's for experienced practitioners, and it advocates a continuous evolutionary and iterative design to your DDD process or DDD modeling process specifically. And we're talking about modeling right now. We're not talking about development, like everything that
No.
happens before the development of the app.
Exactly. We're talking about the planning phase where you kind of sit down and talk about the specifications of your systems, requirements. I think more high level and in a lot of ways we're taking a look at the domain, which is the mainly the business question at hand. So
Right.
definitely we're not at the coding state at the moment. So we're getting there at some point in the future. But for now, there's the modeling. So then
Right.
this tool then allows you to basically start by maybe jotting down your ideas. And then you talked about this evolutionary way of allowing your application to grow. Is that right?
That's right. So it lays down 8 steps in your
Mm-hmm.
entire DDD process, in the modeling process. The first 2 steps are about understanding your domain model or the business model and then discovering the domain. And the good part and the best part about it is it gives you the corresponding tools under these categories. So if you're talking about understanding a business model or discovering the domain, it says the years where you're going to apply event storming or year where you're going to apply event modeling. So that gives people exactly in which phase of your DDD modeling process does event storming or event modeling actually apply. Then the next phase, once you discover the model, is decomposing it, connecting the subdomains. You're talking about messages at that point of time. It delves a little bit into team topologies or how you want to organize your teams around these decomposition guidelines, and finally giving strategy tips on where you should focus DDD, your core domains, where you should do not DDD and stuff. So that's the mid phase. So the first phase is about understanding and discovering a model. The next is about decomposition. The next level, basically strategic DDD,
Right.
team topologies, the message definitions, and the final piece is about definition of roles, and then how you code your bounded context, and that's where the tactical patterns come into play. So this entire 8-step process is a fabulous, paved path approach to you to kind of do your DDD modeling process, and I use it a lot. Every time I need to explain folks, especially at the C level or line of business users, or even project managers, right? They always want to have a process and what exactly is DDD, and these 8 steps provided by the DDD crew really help us get there.
Yeah, definitely. I think what is really missing sometimes when it comes to designing an application, and I've talked to this with various guests that I've had in the past and also colleagues outside of the recording sessions, is that sometimes, actually, a lot of times, as engineers or architects, we have an idea of what we're kind of hoping to get from an application, but the sometimes, or many times actually, there's sort of a loss of connection between the business side and the IT side of things in companies, and connecting the two is very important. So I really like that this tool specifically gives you that the option to really understand and discover the model, or the domain, excuse me, first of all, before kind of diving a little bit deeper into the more detailed aspects of it, and more fine-grained points of it. So really cool. I'm looking forward actually to experimenting with this a little bit. They have the I will put the links to all of these tools and topics that we talk about, so that folks can go ahead and try them out and see what they like. And by the way, this is in no shape or form a sponsorship by any of these tools. We're just discovering and sharing the knowledge and the information with anybody out there who's interested in learning more about these things. So yeah, I'm looking at their GitHub repository. There's a lot of good documentation of what needs to be done, sort of step by step of the processes, which is really, really neat. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. Any other thing that you want to share about DDD Crew before?
I think there is always comparisons. That Eric Evans also has got something known as the Whirlpool process.
Hmm.
So Eric Evans, I think, puts it it talks about Eric Evans. I mean, his approach of actually coming up with the DDD process or the DD model.
Yeah.
So it's like a whirlpool. Like again, there
Mhm.
are it's a continuous iterative process around modeling, scenario development, and finally code probing. Right. So
Yeah.
that's also something that is available, and this is very similar to what Eric Evans's process has proposed. This, of
Mhm.
course, gives good details on how which actual tools can be used in each of these cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really cool. And I really am excited about, and some of these tools that most of these, actually, I think all of the ones that we're going to talk about today do have that aspect of growth, which means your requirements may change, and you're still able to change your design and go to, version 2 or version 15 or whatever it is. And just gives you the ability to grow with your project, because we're not talking about anything static here. It's just that all of our projects and our systems always grow based on the needs of the business. So this is really cool that these tools give that opportunity to grow with the project.
Right. And
Wonderful.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
God.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's considering the explosion of DDD around the world, in the
Mhm.
software development world. I think now you need such modeling tools, and it's much easier to align business with whatever you're developing.
Right.
Previously, you had UML diagrams and you had ER1 diagrams and BPMN diagrams, but they were just specifications, right?
Right.
The business used to look at it and say, what's actually going on? I have really no idea.
No clue. No clue.
Yes.
Exactly.
Uh,
And it's like one of the I was talking earlier with another colleague, and we were talking about the little silver linings that came out of this whole disaster of COVID, which was very unfortunate for the whole world. But some of the things that are possible now that we didn't really have a whole lot of access to in the past is that a lot of these tools are available online, and they give you the opportunity to work with various team members remotely. So you don't need to necessarily be in the same room. I was actually just having a design session with one of our clients last week with my colleague who's in Serbia and the client who was in the Netherlands, and I'm here in the US, and we're just a modeling session, and that's really neat. Yes, it's true. It's taken away some of the freedom of having that the option of just sitting in a room and sort of observing everybody's body language and facial expressions and things like that that are very important when you sit down with the whole company to
right.
model something. But on the other hand, it is possible to still do this process without being in the same geographical location, which is nice. So the next one that I came across a couple of months ago, actually, which I thought it was really neat tool to use. It's really cool. It's easy to use, and it's a bit more of the name says it. It's called storytelling. um, it helps with the sort of notion of understanding exactly what the business process is and what the requirement of the system is. And it kind of puts it in a really nice um, kind of timeline. And you have options to do various things like give it priorities and give it different comments if you need to, or things like that. So, but tell me more about it because you've worked with it more extensively.
Right. So, what domain storytelling is, and again going back to the DDD did the DDD crew process. It's it falls into the understanding and discovery phase of your DDD modeling process. Domain storytelling came about by these two gentlemen who decided that there is really no there is really no way, if you are used to a process driven approach in your organization today. You've got things like event storming or event modeling, but people are more used to that mental map of how a
Mhm.
process should look like, right? Rather than directly jumping into the event model or into the event storming sessions. So it's a technique to transform domain knowledge into effective business software. It brings together the domain experts and development teams, but domain experts talk about a particular story, and then the architect or the developer draws it as the story is being told. So it's again a workshop format. But the good thing about it is it's not like it's just not a free format. Domain
Yeah.
storytelling gives you actual set of artifacts to model the business process. So
Mhm.
it gives you stuff like roles. It gives you work objects, which are the main entities that the roles interact with, and then you got activities, which are the basic connections of how the whole process flow looks like. Now,
Right.
unlike and I don't know if you come. I've worked a lot in financial services industries where BPMN is the standard to do this today, and the business process management is the standard to document and showcase your business processes today. But that
Yeah.
was technically done doesn't really make sense.
Mhm.
And domain storytelling is a giant leap in visualization of the business processes. So it enables everyone across the organization, be it the IT, be it business, be it line of business owners or the C level, to understand what are the relevant people, activities, and work items that we need to have within, that is needed within a particular domain. So
Yeah,
it
definitely.
so it makes the business processes and the domain knowledge tangible to everyone because it's a highly visual way of doing it.
What modeling storytelling is doing is that it actually kind of takes away some of those rules and regulations. For instance, you don't need the sticky notes with various colors, for example. You don't need to have that. prior knowledge about it. You sit down and with the tool that they have actually on their website. I was looking at last month. They have a video with them kind of uh, showing how you can go through the process as somebody is telling them, yes, this is the system I want to work with. These are the important people. These are the things that are happening in terms of priority in time as well as priority in the business side. And it was really cool to kind of see things develop. And also, at one point, I think there were things that were developing sort of parallel to one another, and sort of making that distinction between which one do you have to tackle first and then which one next, and then bringing in the whole notion of bounded context and things like that,
Yeah.
which was really cool.
Yeah, and of course, it offers you all those capabilities that are there today in terms of flushing out the bounded context, flushing out your model. But I find that I find the domain storytelling artifacts to be an excellent input towards my even modeling
Yeah.
this at some point. So we'll talk about that. But the domain story model through domain modeling, in my view, and people might say yes or no, is it forms the input to the event model very
Yeah.
very neatly, right? And people don't combine those two today.
And I'm so glad that you brought this up, because when we were talking the other day, we were sort of talking about how you can actually combine these tools and combine these different modeling techniques, because you don't have to go completely with one modeling way or system and then completely forget about the rest of them.
Yeah.
Many of them can complement each other, which is really nice. So this the domain storytelling is a really good sort of way to then translate it basically into event modeling. And one of the other thing is that prior to even doing that, you can do domains or event storming, right?
Yeah.
So we can start with that. We can do event storming because that's sort of like the first thing that we start, right? To define what that domain is, to kind of define what we're talking about. And we can even use the DDD crew, the two first parts, which are the discovery and the
Understand. Yeah.
and understanding, discovery and understanding, and then go to event storming, and then go to
I think one of the things that I find, especially in my event storming things that I've conducted, is
Mhm.
sometimes the business finds it hard to understand. Though it's a
Yeah, yeah,
it's a great way to start off with, but it's like deer in the headlights for a lot of those folks, right?
yeah.
Because their minds are mapped to that process. This is the process that I want. So
Hmm.
event storming can be done technically. Please do involve the business folks too, because
Yeah,
the purest definition is everybody needs to be involved in that.
right.
But it feeds into the domain storytelling, which in turn then feeds into the event model.
To event modeling. So since we did talk about a little bit, we're sort of throwing jargons here, event modeling and event storming, and I do have episodes that I did cover each one of them in depth with both Alberto Brandolini, who came up with the notion of event storming, and also with Adam Dimitruk, who then organized his way of sort of taking the concepts of the event storming and sort of develop it into a little bit more detailed way of organizing and planning the application, which is then the event modeling. So I highly recommend folks to listen to those episodes if you don't know about them. But just to recap, can you talk and explain a little bit about what event storming is first, and then what event modeling is?
Yeah, so event storming again is a thing that people, I mean, according to the DDD crew definition, because I keep on going that again, it's again
Yeah.
the way to flush out your domain model, but primarily using events as your base, right? So you storm out the business process is stormed out as a series of domain events, and then you put the other artifacts around commands and views around it.
Right.
So it's so it falls in the same category as understanding and discovery of your model. And
Mhm.
then you got high level event storming, and then design level event storming, sorry, it's called the big picture event storming, and then the
Mhm.
design level event storming. Different techniques to kind of flush it out even further.
Right.
And event modeling, on the other hand, is something that we all use pretty heavily today.
Yeah.
I've got introduced to it by looking at your episodes and Ivan, and I've learned a lot from there. Is event modeling, according to the DD Crew definition, falls in the code piece, right? Because
Hmm.
that's where you actually have your specification by example mapped out.
Right.
So you've got two levels of, one is about discovery and
Hmm.
understanding, and the other is all about coding. And finally, the specification that can be handed out to the developer to just get
Yeah,
it done.
exactly. Which makes the process of and actually you mentioned Ivan, our other colleague, and I wrote a series of blogs about how you can basically map out this model and then translate it into code eventually. And there are 7 steps in the whole process where you sort of do the brainstorming, which is essentially event storming part of it, and then you choose your, and the time is actually a really important concept in event modeling because you have this notion of time where your events are sitting on that line of time from basically left to right, the event that has to happen first and then next and then so on to the final event where you're trying to get to. And then the other notion of event modeling, which I really appreciate also, is the usage of the UI and the UX from the very beginning of the design, which is really helpful because a lot of times when we, especially talking about CQRS, for example, we're focusing on the events and we're focusing on the commands. So we're focusing, okay, what is the intention, what is the history and things of the past, and then what are the views or queries. But with event modeling, it makes it a little bit more sort of interactive with the user and puts the user sort of at the very beginning part of the design as well, because we want to make sure that that user experience is effective and also pleasant, and it actually works with the flow of the design that we want to have eventually, which is really great. And then of course, then because you have all of these events and commands and queries, it's much easier to then go and translate all of that into code.
That's right. Yeah.
Because yeah, because early on you figure out on even names or things like that, so it makes life a little bit easier.
And your Jira is not going to go away very soon. So all of these things still map into user stories,
Exactly.
and it's going to still remain there, right? So people are not just going to overnight just replace this by this process.
Yeah.
So having an event model, which is a specification that can be given out to developers, but you've got the domain storytelling, which can be mapped to the user story,
Yeah.
or a Jira ticket, and then
Right. Absolutely.
that's not going to go. Yeah,
Exactly. And in that on that note, we there is a tool that is still being um, developed as they're going. It is out in public, so folks can go ahead and use it, and it's through a company called oNote, and it makes actually the process of the event modeling quite easy because you can put in your events first, and it automatically then helps you, gives you options and various tools to then create your commands based on those events, and then the view model as well. And it's a really nice tool. It's they're the company who is behind it. It's there's this the team is not that huge. It's a startup. They're really nice folks, and there's actually a I think a conversation where the application was introduced by the folks at oNote with Adam Dimitruk, and they were going through it and sort of showing how you can design your model through that. So really some really cool, neat items coming out, which was very exciting. And of course, we can't forget about Miro, right? It's just
the
super
mirror.
simple way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think oNote is going to be more relevant as I think tools like oNote are definitely going to be more relevant as flush out the event model process. It's going to kind of, you know, gives you that complete capability to build out your specification and then just generate the code out of it. So,
Yeah. And that's the
stop.
best part about it because it generates the code for you,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you can't not look at it. I mean, it's not, it doesn't take the job of the engineer away, but
yeah,
it just makes it a little bit easier, which is always nice. So that's really cool.
yeah. And
Um,
There is one
Yeah.
more, Domorobo. I think that's from Juan Vernon. I think he's also coming up with a new event storming, bounded
Uh-huh.
context mapping toolkit, and I've just like done a little bit of playing around with it, and that also looks pretty neat. But that's more around the it's not related to event modeling at all. It's
Hmm.
more around anything else that the DDD crew offers, right? Around event storming and bounded context and
So
context
it's
map,
kind of like more high level.
more high level. I mean,
Okay.
I guess that's what it is. But
Yeah.
I think one is continuously refactoring it, and it looks pretty good from the first.
Nice. I have to check it out. I've never used it, so that's really cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
introducing that. Yeah, so lots of really, really interesting and fascinating tools out there. That's kind of like putting me in the toy store, and then I don't know what to do. It's like, I want it all, right?
But isn't it great? This was a piece which was always lacking in the DDD world,
Yeah.
and now with these tools, people are used to processes. People need tools, and
Mm,
with a lot of these tools, I'm really excited about the way these things are mapping out. I think it would be really great and helpful for all of us to utilize these tools. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it makes the process of planning for applications a lot more pleasant because a lot of times we have these. My husband and I joke around, and I'm a DDD fan, obviously, and I appreciate the whole process of recognizing and discovering where the domain is, what the domain is, and then what are the bounded contexts, and so on and so forth. And his approach is a little bit different. He likes to sit down and write the code immediately, and so we always laugh about, hey, you need to model first, you need to plan first, but then planning takes a lot of time. But then it's such an important part of it. And just recently, we were talking about something that he had recently done with a feature he was working on. He said, it's so wonderful to have the planning because with the previous one, we hadn't done as much of the planning. And so things started changing a lot during the development part. And then, of course, it got a little bit messy. So it's really nice to put a little bit of time in the planning process of it. So with the most recent one, they did that, and he's just like, yes, now I'm for planning and for modeling. It's like, yes, I
Hmm.
succeeded.
So he actually introduced event modeling to the whole group of
Yeah,
them.
he's been and now I don't know the details of it, of course, but um, through our conversation and my love of event modeling and planning and event storming and things like that, and I'm always, or these are the very romantic conversations we have at the end of the day when we have a minute talking about event modeling.
It's fabulous.
It's great.
I think it's one of the greatest things that I've ever used. I think so.
Yeah,
Kudos to Adam to actually come up with such a revolutionary thought
absolutely.
process, and
Yeah.
kudos to you and Ivan to help teach me.
Our pleasure. No, it's yeah, it's one of those things that I'm a very visual person, so I really like to see things in front of me, and having the notion of putting things in, and I love puzzles. So for me, it's kind of like putting jigsaw puzzles together. It's like, okay, which one goes where? And, you kind of have to organize it in sort of a free form puzzle, but it has to make sense at the end of the day. So that's the cool part of it. You get to be creative, and that's awesome. So any other tools, Vijay, that you've come across lately that you'd like to share?
Now, these are the, I mean, those are the two things that I've been using of late. oNote is something that I'm closely looking at right now because
Mm,
I'm not, Miro is a very general purpose tool, but
of course.
oNote is typically specific for event modeling. So
Yeah.
I really like that. And then, yeah, I think nothing else right now. I keep on checking for new modeling tools,
Yeah.
but I think
So
that
I'm sure
these
we'll come back to it in probably 6 months or whatever and revisit the topic and share more exciting things and tools that we like with everybody else because we love sharing knowledge.
absolutely. It's always a pleasure to speak to you on this.
You too. Always fun. Always fun. Thank you so much for the time, and can't wait to talk to you about more really cool stuff that you have discovered and come across.
Okay.
All
No
right.
worries.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Vijay.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to my talk with Vijay. I hope you give some of these tools a try and enjoy them. Until next time, have a great time and happy coding.